Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Coach Goes Back to College. This is week number 7, episode number 8. First of all, if you're joining for the very first time, welcome in. Second of all, if you're checking out the Sports Affiliation channel for the very first time, do make sure that you do get subscribed so you never miss any of the great content going on the YouTube, on the Twitter space, or X as they call it now, any of the Twitter spaces that are out there as well. Great group of guys there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as always. And then also be sure to check out my own personal channel, Coach Craig Sports, for all your DFS needs. But for those of you who are joining me for the very first time, this is the way that I kind of structure this video. We'll talk about one prospect that I think you guys should know that is playing this week, my personal game of the week, and then going over to my favorite prop for week number 7 as well. So we are going to start off with prospect to know this week. It's going to be Michael Penix Jr., quarterback for Washington. He is 6'3", 213 pounds. He's projected to run on the 4.6s in terms of 40 times. Wouldn't be surprised if he ultimately does not end up running or runs like closer to a 4.7. Would not surprise me whatsoever. He is a former 3-star recruit. He is a redshirt senior, a super senior at that, so this is his 6th year of college football. He played at Indiana prior to his transfer to Washington in 2022. He had 4 seasons there, played a little bit as a true freshman even, and then he dealt with a lot of season-ending injuries there, so 2 ACLs, 2 shoulder injuries that ultimately cost him a lot of time there. So the numbers probably weren't what they could have been. Obviously, he is a guy that did have quite a few flashes here and there at Indiana, but they were kind of limited just based to his overall health. And there was a pretty interesting article that came out on ESPN this week talking about Washington, Michael Penix, and his wide receivers. And he even talked about like going back to high school, he was never injured until his first year at Indiana. That was his first major injury, and it was a torn ACL. So really glad to see him kind of thriving at this point in time at Washington. Was really good last year in 13 games. 65% completion percentage. He had 4,641 passing yards. He had 31 passing touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So pretty good ratio there. Once again, he did lead college football in passing yards. And then he had 35 carries on the ground for 92 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns as well. Obviously, college football, you do take some negative yards for sacks and everything else like that. So he is a little bit mobile, but not somebody that you want to like go out there and trust to run around and anything else like that. Kind of think of how Tua was at Alabama, where he could make some things happen with his legs, but at the NFL level, you're not really seeing him move around too much. And then for 2023, Michael Penix, he has played 5 games so far, almost a 75% completion percentage at 74.7%, 1 yard short of 2,000 passing yards in 5 games. So he's almost averaging 400 passing yards per game. He's got 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, so a great touchdown-interception ratio once again. And then we see not much of that mobile threat, especially this season, with 8 carries for 9 yards in total on the season. So what do we like about Michael Penix? He's got really good leadership traits. Everybody at Washington has really talked highly of him in that. He has a really good ability to read and process the field, especially over the last 2 seasons at Washington. There was the one game versus Iowa where he was at Indiana. That didn't look the greatest. He made some throws he probably shouldn't have, but he was trying to make a lot of things happen. He does have a pretty average arm at this point in time. The shoulder injuries kind of detrimented that a little bit, maybe a little bit above average, but at one point in time it was definitely above average, but the shoulder injuries have kind of impacted him, kind of those injuries overall, which will be really the telling card for him. Whether or not he gets drafted in the first round or not is going to be how those medicals ultimately end up come up during the combine, during the team visits and everything else like that. But definitely do like him quite a bit. He's a left-handed quarterback. Don't see a lot of those in the NFL nowadays, but does have some good upside. Is a guy that could have a very good chance of succeeding at the NFL level, especially if he gets put in the right environment. So that's pretty much what we have to say about Michael Penix. It's going to be a very interesting week, probably his toughest week so far this season, going against Oregon as well. Which leads us into the game of the week this week. So we have number 8 Oregon, who is 5-0, going to Washington, who is number 7 in the country. They are also 5-0. This is probably the best game we've seen so far this season. Washington is 3-point home favorite. So essentially, if this was at a neutral site, this would be a dead coin flip game, deadlock game there. Over-under is at 66 points. There's a couple sites that have it at about 67. This game definitely could go over that. We did see that last season where it ended up being 37-34 in favor of Washington, which was a really good game as well. A lot of talent on both teams here, so definitely going to be one that a lot of scouts are looking at this week. Both teams have really good quarterbacks. Bo Nix on the Oregon side, he's another transfer too as well that came back. Both these guys could have declared for the draft last season, but trying to improve on their stock once again. And, at the same time, Bo Nix at Auburn and Michael Penix at Indiana, they didn't quite realize their potential there, but they have really done it at their new school respectively. So shout out to both those guys. You got a pretty interesting running back in Bucky Irving for Oregon as well. Troy Franklin at wide receiver. And then on the Washington side, we have Rome Odunze and Jaquan McMillan at wide receiver too as well, who were both really good last year, decided to ultimately come back instead of go to the NFL as well. So going to make for a very interesting game. This game is going to air at 2:30 p.m. Central Time and 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. So definitely be sure to check that one out as the day moves along. Definitely going to be one that I'm checking out myself personally as well. And then with that being said, not really trying to bet on this game. I don't lean one way or the other, especially in terms of the point spread, money line, or anything else like that. If you want to take the over in terms of points, you could do it because it could definitely go over, but it still is a pretty high line at that. But with that being said, we're going to get over to my favorite prop of the week. Before we get rolling too far, we're going to talk about season-to-date record. We're 4-3 on the season. Last week, we had Malik Neighbors plus Luther Burden in terms of receiving yards of the combination pick there, and they smashed the over. They smashed the over by like 80 yards, so was a pretty easy one last week. And if you play that like alongside the Carson Beck discount line on PrizePicks, it was an easy triple up there if you were going the power play route. If you threw a third one in there as a flex play, made some easy money there as well. But for this week, we're going to talk about Marshawn Lloyd, running back for USC. Talked a little bit about him that week 0 game, so definitely somebody that you should be familiar with on the channel. If you're not, go back and watch week 0 video. He's been killing it so far for USC this season. We are taking his rushing yards over 73.5 at this point in time. He has hit the over in 5 of 6 games in 2023, including the last 5 games. The only game that he did not hit the over was the opening game of the season for San Jose State. That was kind of the game, they got him, they had Austin Jones, they got Relic Brown there too. Game wasn't like super close either way, but they were kind of rotating through some of those running backs, figuring it out. It was Marshawn Lloyd's first game with the team as well, but he's really kind of taken over a lion's share of this backfield at this point in time. Goes against Notre Dame, so it's going to be a pretty historic rivalry here between Notre Dame and USC. Obviously, it's a rivalry that plays out every year. This game is at Notre Dame, if I remember correctly, and Notre Dame is allowing 140.2 rushing yards per game, which is 64th in the nation, which is kind of surprising. There are a lot of teams that are giving up quite a few rushing yards, but 140 per game. Let's just say Marshawn Lloyd gets just a little over half of that. That easily puts him over for this week, so definitely do like that one. Not a lot of ones that truly stood out to me this week, but this one looks pretty strong, at least on paper, going into the week as well. But with that being said, that's all that I do have for Coach Craig Goes Back to College for week number 7. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, want to talk a little bit of college football, feel free to leave it down in the comments. And then once again, as always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But with that being said, if you are checking out my video for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, make sure that you are subscribed to the Sports Affiliation YouTube channel. Like I said, great group of guys over there, great amount of content coming out on a weekly basis, whether it's on YouTube or on the Twitter space as well. Be sure to check out all of them. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you never miss a beat. And then also be sure to check out my own personal channel, Coach Craig Sports, for all of your DFS needs. And then last but not least, shout out to Better Vision. If you're looking at bets for multiple books, Better Vision, download their app. It's over on the Apple side. They don't have it for Android yet, but should be coming soon. They're one of the sponsors for Sports Affiliation. And then also be sure to check out the Fantasy Football Advice Forum, which is another app talking everything fantasy football, more on the NFL side. But if you want to talk some college football over there, they're probably not going to be against it at the same time. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you checking out this video. Definitely means a lot to myself and the rest of the Sports Affiliation team. And with that being said, I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your weekend and a pretty good time watching some Week 7 college football.